Hello everyone, my name is Blue Rain. Question, who's your favorite YouTuber? Mine is Ava G. If you were involved in fandom spaces around 10 years ago, you're probably familiar with her Five Nights at Freddy's and Bendy and the Ink Machine animations. Nowadays, she runs a little company called Jennu Productions, and focuses more on telling stories with her original characters. That doesn't mean she's completely removed from fandom spaces, however. I've been a loyal fan of Ava G's work since late 2016, reacting to nearly all of her content on my reaction channel Rain Into React. I'm well versed in Ava G's catalog and the lore within it, and I've wanted to make this video for a very long time. We're finally continuing the Ava G Chronicles, guys! This is going to be a multi-part series where I talk about and review every video on both of Ava G's YouTube channels. I will be separating these parts into my own personal defined eras of her work. The old era begins in 2016 with the very first upload on her main channel, Raining Tacos, on March 15th, 2016. Which is funny, March 15th was also the day my album Now I Exist released 9 years later. The modern era begins on Christmas Eve 2016 with the short Merry Christmas animation, capping off the old era and shows Ava G beginning to refine her art style. And the new era begins with the Peppermint animation and continues forward from there. Ava G's art style has had years to develop, and comparing them side by side makes it obvious. The old era is Ava G's start, the modern era is Ava G's development, and the new era is Ava G's current form. We will be discussing the entirety of the old era in this video, so without any further delays, let's begin. I watched and reviewed every Ava G video. This is the old era. What can I say about Raining Tacos that hasn't already been said? It's a classic in Ava G's catalog for good reason. We're introduced to the core 4 Ava G characters, and as we learned much later on, they were first designed in this animation, not previously designed at all.
Raining Tacos essentially was Jenna's idea, and I just kind of decided to animate little characters to it, and quite literally, Grace, Pip, Blaze, and Roxo were drawn for the very first time on that animation.
This animation was the world's introduction to Grace, Pip, Roxo, and Blaze, as they all sing along to Perry Grip's Raining Tacos. Because the designs were confirmed to have been made first in this animation, I believe that this may have been Ava G's first attempt at animation. It's possible that she may have done some practicing on previous projects, however. The old era of Ava G is defined by learning. Some animations are definitely rough around the edges as Ava gets accustomed to the process. But for Raining Tacos, I believe it sets a pretty high starting bar. There's not a lot of animation errors, the movement of the characters is defined, although sometimes difficult to follow, and each character is introduced over time, not at once, which helps in easing viewers into getting to know the core 4. As for the content of the animation itself, they love tacos, what can I say? I also enjoy tacos, who doesn't? I probably won't be posted up under a cheese cloud like Roxo over here, but to each their own. A quirk about the audio used during most of the old era is that the audio sounds recorded from an external source, like a laptop or a speaker.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes.
This isn't the case with every animation during this era, but it's definitely there. For the longest time, I wanted to fix this problem. Take every old era Ava G video affected by this problem and replace it with a high quality from the source audio file. Just have an archive of fixed audio Ava G animations. I just haven't done it yet. Something very interesting that I picked up is that during the old era, Ava never filled in the characters' eyes, leaving them with empty white circles. This isn't the case, however, for Pip's introduction. It's like Ava G tried to design their eyes, but changed her mind after this part. Their eyes, however, would find their color and design at the start of the modern era. Blaze is a darker shade of orange, just slightly, but noticeable. He would get brighter later on. That's it, lol. Finally, I feel like Roxo had a little bit more detail on his body on Raining Tacos. like these rivets and what look like servos here. Over this era, Roxo would be a little bit more simplified, but his details would return in future eras. Raining Tacos was proof that Ava G had something special going. Even at the very start, she exercised her knowledge of concepts that would be refined later down her career path. We're introduced to 4 now iconic characters, and Ava G found her calling. I'm going to give a short descriptive sentence to each video to summarize my feelings about them. For Raining Tacos, I'll say that it's an efficient starting point. Only the second video in, and Ava G begins to cement herself as a FNaF fandom staple. The Break My Mind animation is Ava G's first foray into animations surrounding the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. This would be her mainstay fandom for a good while from here on out. The animation begins the development of what I like to call the character playbook, where the animation is meant more to suit the content of the fandom or song, as the characters only really do what they already do from the source material, while singing along. And yeah, this is definitely Ava G's first character playbook animation. It's pretty damn rough. A lack of clear line borders around the animatronic designs makes distinguishing their shape difficult, and the pacing of the animation feels like cramming a large collection of books into a single book essay, if that makes sense. Better character playbook animations will come along, but there's a first for everything. Grace becomes the FNaF 4 protagonist as she fends off an army of singing nightmare animatronics, no doubt becoming traumatized in the process. We'll see more FNaF animations where Grace is the unfortunate night guard later on during the old era. Poor Grace. So, I only saw this on my research rewatch, but I swear, the second half of Break My Mind looks a bit better than the first. Notice how much clearer the line borders are. Here's a comparison. I theorize that it's because Ava worked on the first half, took a break to maybe work on something else, and came back with a little more skill to finish it. I mean, 3 animations came out on March 15th. I'm a musician, and I don't think that's how you play the xylophone plush strap, but what do I know? I play the fucking guitar. It's been nearly 10 years since Break My Mind came out, and we barely know anything about this character, Grace's mother. She first appeared in this animation, then appeared in a Mother's Day speed paint. We know next to nothing about her, other than that she's Grace's mom. I've been an Avaverse lore master for so long, I fiend for information about this character. I hadn't discovered Ava G when Break My Mind came out, so I don't know how well the animation did on release, but clearly it was a fandom that Ava G wanted to tap into more at this time. Break My Mind laid the stepping stones for more FNaF-centered animations, but you can easily tell that it was the first. For Break My Mind, I'll say that it was a rough trailblazer. Forgive me for the amount of favoritism I'm going to give this animation, but this was the video I discovered Ava G with. I would have none of this if I didn't find this video back in late 2016. We're still on the 15th of March 2016, by the way. The FNaF 2 rap animation is basically a better Break My Mind. Still a character playbook animation, but executed to a much stronger degree. Poor Grace having to deal with these 10 lunatic animatronics making fun of her in her situation. I really like some of the transitions that Ava does with the song. For example, this part about a minute in going from Golden Freddy to Toy Freddy looks really good. Or this part where Golden Freddy gives a lesson about the bite of 87.
Was that the bite of 87?
I also feel like Ava does a good job aligning the animatronic character with the lyrical content of the song. The chorus is mainly done by the toy animatronics, the verses by the Withered, the puppet gets their own part, and Ava does a good job matching the lyrics with the shown character. Like this part, where the vent-crawling Withers rap about being the imposter from Among Us. At 1 minute and 22 seconds into the animation, where the fuck is Withered Freddy's teeth color? It looks to me like Ava G began doing more tiny visual things, starting with this animation. Look at Mangled during the couple wires tangled line. They roll their eyes. Or the boop over Grace's mouth as the song censors the word fuck. YouTube doesn't pay me, I don't give a fuck. I also really like how Balloon Boy's eyes rotate a whole 360 degrees when he sings the word around. It's little details like this that I think Ava G mastered in the future. So I'm editing the video right now, and I was gonna say that the video ended with like 15 seconds of just a blank screen, but on my download of the video, it's just broken there. It just repeats the same frame while keeping the rest of the audio. So the ending of the video is broken completely, I think. The FNaF 2 rap animation is the character playbook done right. I have an unreal amount of nostalgia and love towards this animation due to it being the very first Ava G video I watched, and to think that it led me to everything from a small but incredible fan base surrounding my original music to hell, becoming a musician itself is incredible to me. I'll forever love this animation because of the path that it put me on. For FNaF 2 rap, I'll say that it's a sign of refinement. There's not much to say about the 38-second "there's a cat licking your birthday cake," but at least we get to see the rest of the core 4 again. Something notable about Ava G's earlier animations is that most of them are in a 4:3 aspect ratio, meaning the shape of the video is basically a square. Not all of them will be, but an aspect ratio of 16:9 is much more of a future thing. Anyway, Ava G's mother had a birthday, I presume, and Ava G made this in celebration of that. It's cute! We also get introduced to this character, the B-Day Cat, who's apparently canon. He only shows up in like 3 total videos though. He also gets attacked by Roxo and gets a concussion from Golden Freddy.
Headshot.
This is the first animation where we see Pip's relationship with music and being a DJ. This concept would show up more over time. With the benefit of hindsight, the B-Day Cat looks to me like a proto-design of Finn, Ava G's actual cat, who would be introduced just a year later as an official character. The "there's a cat" animation falls under the short but sweet category. We'll see more of them going forward, but this is a good start. For "there's a cat licking your birthday cake," I'll say that it's a fun celebration.
It's your birthday today.
You know, you never know when you're creating a classic until you release it. The Timber animation, while beginning some concepts that won't be held up in the future, I believe has reached classic status. Grace takes the role of Kesha and Pip takes the voice of Pitbull, as the core 4 plus various FNaF characters have a party around a farm. That's pretty much all I have to say about the core concept of Timber. The inclusion of FNaF characters might put some viewers off though, especially if you're not used to Ava G's FNaF stuff, but remember that this franchise dominated Ava G's earlier work. It makes sense that she would incorporate the characters into her other animations that weren't FNaF fan songs. Anyway, Grace and Freddy jump to their deaths, Pip makes Foxy go deaf, Bonnie and Chica are in love, and Golden Freddy and Springtrap are friends. How the fuck does that make sense? I want to highlight this quick callback to Raining Tacos, with Roxo eating some cheese out of a dog bowl. It's a fun little callback, even if Raining Tacos was literally only a month old when Timber came out. Also, this funny visual gag with Pip stealing Grace's sandwich while she isn't looking is really good. Timber is a boatload of fun. A party at a farm with loud music and good times shared by all. It still has that old era animation charm, and it succeeds tenfold at capturing the spirit of the song. If the FNaF characters put you off, then you're a bitch, lol! Just kidding. For Timber, I'll say that it's a good time. I have virtually nothing to say about this one. I don't really care for it. You can tell by this screenshot that Gadget took while I was watching it for research. It's a bunch of characters that you're never going to see again, moving it. I will say one thing about it. I think this animation was important in teaching Ava G how to move characters in a scene. The start of figuring out more about how characters should move around, where their limbs and bodies should go. Other than that, I legitimately have nothing else to say. No interesting observations, nothing. The animation is at least good, but I just don't really care for it. If I'm on an Ava G kick, I won't seek it out. For I like to move it, I'll say it's a lesson in movement. It's a similar story with the game over animation, except it's about 3 minutes longer than I like to move it. We're back to Grace being the FNaF Night Guard in a character playbook style animation that, in my opinion, doesn't really do anything interesting. We do, however, go through the first 4 FNaF games during the video, which I think is a pretty unique idea. Also, Grace looks unusually angry about the situation. I headcanon that it's because she suffered through FNaF 4 and 2, and that she's mad at Ava for constantly throwing her back into this security position. I really liked these two parts back to back though. Every FNaF 2 character shows up in the hallway after every light flash, then it turns into this rapid fire of characters in sync with the lyrics that I can barely understand. It's a cool collection of scenes. Watch out! We do get the introduction of Ava G's phantom animatronic designs here, and they will show up in the next video. I noticed that during the part of the animation that surrounds FNaF 4, Grace is completely absent. It's purely the animatronic stalking around the house and singing. I personally find the game over animation a bit bland. However, it plays with a cool concept, with each of the first 4 Five Nights at Freddy's games finding a theme in this video. We will see this concept done again in the near future, done to a much better degree in my opinion, but Game Over just doesn't really hook me well. Definitely some cool parts, but it finds itself hard to stand on its own. For Game Over, I'll say that it feels hollow. Alright, back to peak. Finally, Springtrap gets the spotlight in this great character playbook animation. Grace does her best to fend off him and the phantom animatronic sabotaging her equipment. I really like the use of the lyrics to influence the animation, such as the "there was only one suit" line. Also, shout out to the transitions in this animation. They're great. During the pre-chorus, we see the purple guy in the suit just before the spring lock failure, and once he's killed and hits the floor, we're immediately transported to the present seamlessly. It happens again in the second verse and the first chorus as well. It's a really cool effect, especially on that first chorus where it looks like an Iron Man suit-up scene. Can you stop fucking kicking Grace? The bridge is also fantastic. The vocals, as they grow more intense, lend their weight to the purple guy, as after every repetition he becomes more unhinged, screaming at Grace as he prepares to attack. In the end, Grace escapes Fazbear's fright, leaving Springtrap and the Phantoms to their own devices, probably to burn down the joint during the third section of the Game Over animation. Pay attention to the audio at the very start of the animation. It's still being recorded from an external source, however, the first 17 seconds are muffled and quiet until it's fixed. I'm probably the only person in the world that has noticed that. That's actually the only interesting observation I have for the purple guy animation. The purple guy animation is yet another example on how to do the character playbook right. You feel for Grace and understand the danger she's in. I love Ava G's Springtrap design. It's absolutely iconic, and it would be refined over the years. I'm very glad William Afton got his own Ava G animation. For Purple Guy, I'll say that it's shockingly effective. Mid-2016, FNAF's sister location hype was strong across the fandom, and Ava G made a spoof of the official trailer. It's not an identical recreation of the trailer, Ava G does take some creative liberties with it, but I gotta say, I think it's really good. Grace is shown as the night guard once again, and we're introduced for the first time to Ava G's Funtime animatronic designs, and they're simply iconic. There's not much to say about this one, it's a really good version of the trailer. However, after the end of the original audio, we get this sequence.
Look, can you come out of the vent? No way! I ain't gonna get eaten by no babe person.
This is the first time we see Ava G's persona in an animation, and hear her voice, along with a voice for Grace that we will never hear again. My only observation is at the end. Where did this scream come from? Is it a video, a stock sound effect? Is it Ava G's little sister Genevieve? I really want to know. Not too long, not too short. I think it falls under the short but sweet category. And it played into the sister location hype at the time. Plus, it has a funny ending. What's not to love? I only have 2 notable things to say about this animation. Ava G branches her franchise options to Undertale, and that you can still hear the word fuck under the beep. That's literally it. I fucking love this animation. I have a ton of nostalgia for it, and I still listen to the song on the album it's on all the time. In this animation, the characters from each franchise Ava G has animated with so far, along with Ava G's original characters, come together for a celebration of friendship, forgiving past sins, and singing about unity. It's a fantastic crossover animation. We're shown that Golden Freddy has godlike powers, and that Pip is actually Sans. It's also a special occasion, as at the end of Gone Gone Gone, we are introduced to a brand new character, who we don't get the name of until the modern era. This is Big Blue. Judging only from this animation, he looks like a creature made up of the souls of every character. We don't know much about Big Blue, so I have to resort to theory crafting. So, at about 53 seconds into the animation, we are shown this crystal-looking bird creature. We know nothing about it other than that it was created by the soul power of Springtrap and Golden Freddy. I wonder if there were plans to flesh out this concept more, or if that got turned into the character we know as Big Blue. I really like the detail that instead of Flowey's face, it's Azriel's. It's a little bit of creative liberty, but I find it very effective. It fits with the concept of unity shown in the animation, allowing us to connect a little bit with the demented flower. Shout out to the Kara knife flower bit. I thought it was smart, showing that Kara would of course have trouble adjusting to the themes of the video. Where are they? I highly recommend this animation, especially if at some point in your life you were a part of the Five Nights at Freddy's and Undertale fandoms. It's a sweet animation to a great song, and it's an Ava G staple in my eyes. I love this animation so much. For Gone Gone Gone, I'll say that it's ruthlessly wholesome. It's Malk, but FNaF. That's all you need to know. I will say though, it took me 9 years to realize that this was supposed to be Shadow Freddy. Took me long enough. Also, I think this is the darkest that an Ava G video has gotten because of the source material. The only observation I have is that Ava G included a warning at the start of the video. Again, ties back to the content of the source material. It makes sense. That's the only observation I have, unless you want to talk about Ava G's emo haircut right here. It's Malk, but animated by Ava G. It's still pretty funny though, I will admit. Pip in School is a first for Ava G. It starts to paint a picture of the personalities of the core 4. Pip is of course the subject of the video, using a classic Brian Regan stand-up clip to show that Pip is a little bit of a fool. This concept would be built upon much later in the future in the episodic series. So would Grace's temper, which would be refined into her current personality. Using Brian Regan's stupid in school bit, we see Pip being anything but the tool in the shed. From reading a book upside down to presenting a cup of dirt as a science project. Also, this animation is unique, as it is currently the only Ava G animation that would get merchandise inspired by it way down the line. Ava G's sense of visual humor really shines in this animation. I love the weekends and holidays bit with the teacher character, who never shows up again, sliding across the calendar, or the boxing joke where we can see Pip's failed escape attempts. Shout out also to this Grand Theft Auto reference.
So she went to this one kid, there was a kid.
Oh, hello, Princess Celestia. I love this joke because it makes so much sense. Having Princess Celestia be the kid that yells "the big yellow one's the sun" works incredibly well. This is also one of 2 times that Ava G drew anything related to My Little Pony. I love how the Lorax just appears for a 2-second joke and never appears again. I said earlier in this section that this animation begins developing the personalities of some of the characters, mainly Pip and Grace. Their personalities would be refined during the span of Ava G's career, but I believe that this was the start of their character traits forming. This animation uses the source audio rather than an external recording, rare in the old era, but elevates the viewer experience. Source audio would become the full standard later on. Pip in School is a classic from the old era of Ava G. It combines Ava G's original characters with FNaF characters again, but I argue it works very well in this one. Brian Regan is one of my favorite comedians ever. I grew up on his stuff, and combined with Ava G's sense of visual comedy, it makes a fantastic and funny animation. And it's the longest Ava G video up to this point in the era. For Pip in School, I'll say that it's a hilarious building block. Remember what I said about the game over animation? This is the game over animation, but done way better. There's more sections of the animation that hook the viewer, like every post-chorus looking really cool, or the FNaF 2 characters doing the rap segment. The animation switches across the first 4 games, very much similar to the game over animation, but at the very end throws a little bit of a twist, with sister location characters showing up briefly and giving us the very first appearance of Ennard in an Ava G video. We also see Grace phased out of the position as the night guard in this animation, as we get whoever this is taking up the role from her. I guess Ava G decided to be merciful this time. Grace will never appear in a pure FNaF animation from here on out. Unlike every past Ava G video, Can You Survive has a 16:9 aspect ratio. However, this might have been an accident. Notice how some of the text at the beginning of the animation is cut off at the top. I think Ava G animated this video in 4:3, but at some point in the editing process or the upload process, it got turned to 16:9. It doesn't affect the viewing process, however. Nothing important is cut from the screen. Ava G's Springtrap design is slightly more detailed from his previous appearance. Notice the scars on his face or his chest with a lighter color segment. This looks like a catalyst for Ava G starting to incorporate more details on her characters. Once again, we have source audio rather than an external recording. It's rare, but it upgrades the viewing experience. We can actually hear the details and lyrics in the song. Can You Survive is another example of a fantastic character playbook animation. It builds upon the concept from the game over animation and does it much better. It's super memorable, has plenty of parts that hook the viewer, and is endlessly fun. Also, check out this reanimated version done by King D's. It's pretty good. For Can You Survive, I'll say that it's a fantastic upgrade. There's not a whole lot to say about Ava G's 19,000 subscriber video. However, we are finally introduced to Genevieve, Ava G's little sister, who also voices Circus Baby at the end of the video. The intro and outro are animated segments, and the middle is a speed paint of the Funtime animatronics from Sister Location, which was Genevieve's idea. We learned that Ava G uses an iPad application called Animation Creator HD, and that she has Snickers bars on her at all times. It's surprising to know that she was only at a 5-digit subscriber count at this time. It's just a little celebration video, not much more than that. However, I have used this video for plenty of memes across the years.
Hello. This is Ava G here, and this is my little sister to Ava G. Hello, everybody.
Ava G's comedy is still on point as they celebrate this great milestone with a series of speed paints. This is the only speed paint video with animated sections, however, so for all future speed paints, I'll talk about them just briefly before moving on. For thank you 19K subs, I'll say congratulations, Ava G. This is tied with a future video as my favorite Ava G animation. Cecilia and the Satellite was Ava G's first attempt to intertwine lore with her characters, introducing a brand new character to the Avaverse in the process. This is Sylvie the Owl. She crashes into the earth, catching the attention of Grace, Pip, Roxo, and Ava G herself as they run over to help. What follows is a space adventure filled with references and a villain who will return in the future named Spade. Being an Ava G lore master, I absolutely adore Ava G's first attempt at a storyline. While the pacing is pretty quick, you can still understand most of the core story. If I may do a little bit of theory crafting, recently I've noticed some similarities with the Cecilia and the Satellite animation and the writing concept of the hero's journey. I'm going to have to alter it, but hear me out. We aren't given a proper establishing shot for the ordinary world. However, we start with the call to adventure, with Sylvie's crash landing and the other characters rushing out of their regular lives to help. Crossing the first threshold comes with the summoning of Blaze, all the characters boarding, and the takeoff into space. The characters searching for Sylvie's home planet falls under the Road of Trials. They meet with various characters, most being references to other franchises, as they ask around for help. It's only when they talk to O that they get a good lead on where it could be. However, as the main characters stop for food, Spade appears and shifts us to the ordeal. Roxo is taken hostage, and Sylvie heroically attacks Spade, a move that could have easily ended with her death. Holding off Spade for as long as they could, Big Blue comes in to intimidate and scare him off, leading to the reward, being the reunion of Sylvie with her home planet. After an emotional goodbye, especially for Roxo, the rest of the characters begin the road back, returning to their ordinary world and seeing visions of these character designs that I wrote a song about. I call them the Army of Colors. As the characters return to Earth, visually disheartened, Sylvie returns to the rest of the characters, embracing Roxo with tears in both of their eyes and sharing a circle of hands as the final scene in the animation. I believe this technically falls under the Master of the Two Worlds, as Sylvie has free will to return to Earth and her home planet as she pleases. This is a very recent connection that I found, and it makes sense to me. If you agree or disagree, let me know. I think this is a really interesting discussion. Also, let me know if you find any more connections to the hero's journey plot points, as I had to simplify and alter it to a large degree. At 3 minutes and 11 seconds into the animation, we see Spade haunting this character. I wonder who this was supposed to be. I don't think it was supposed to be Ava G or Genevieve because of the bright red hair. Maybe it's a passing reference to somebody they knew, or it's just a random design. And speaking of wondering who's who are the Army of Colors? I wonder if they were extra designs that Ava G had, or if they're references. This one back here has a similar color to Ava G's Springtrap design, and this bird reminds me of the bird from Gone Gone Gone. This frame, it looks like Ava G is just a floating top half of a torso. Pretty funny. As I said, this is tied with a future Ava G animation as my absolute favorite. I have an unreal emotional attachment to this one, and the Ava G lore master within me loves this animation to bits. This is the pinnacle of the old era in my opinion, and it begins Ava G's refinement of her storytelling, something she will master far into the future. For Cecilia and the Satellite story, I'll say that it's ahead of its time. There is next to nothing to say about this trailer except for the fact that Ava G says hello in it.
Hello.
This was the first new Ava G animation I saw after becoming a fan, and I love it. Spooky characters, Ava G characters, and FNaF animatronics all come together to celebrate Halloween. Literally none of these Halloween characters, except for Top Hat Sam, return in future animations. I think that's hilarious. The designs are fantastic, however. I'd love to see them return. Plenty of Ava G's original characters are dressed up in costume, like Grace is dressed like a witch, and Roxo is a literal hot dog, a costume that he abandoned for this outro scene for some reason. Ava G's knack for visuals shines really well in this animation. Check out the wind in your hair, or the clown with the tearaway face. Shout out also to this split-second part about 29 seconds in where this cat quickly stabs this jack-o'-lantern. I really like Ava G's designs for all of the monsters and ghouls described in the song. They all look fantastic and work super well with the song. Also, I love how the animatronics are introduced only about a minute in. It's definitely a surprise. Check out this scene where this monster owl becomes cloaked in shadow while flying in view of the moon. Ava G's sense of movement is steadily improving. This scene has always stood out to me. In that same vein, check out the movement of Top Hat Sam's top hat, and this scene right before Top Hat Sam is properly introduced. Ava G's getting great at character movement. Guys, Pip is hacking! He has no clip-on, ban him! While the audio is once again recorded from an external source, it's also at a higher pitch than the original. On playback, it's also at a higher speed. Whether this was an error on Ava's side, or if it was intentional to avoid any copyright repercussions is unknown. Ava G's Halloween animation is a classic video with a classic song. It's definitely something that should be played every Halloween from here on out. Celebrate the spooks with this classic Ava G animation, and don't tell your friends about the jump scare scare at the end. For Halloween, I'll say that it's a spooky collage. The spooky times don't end even if it's December. We're back to Five Nights at Freddy's! Another fantastic example of a character playbook animation, FNaF's sister location gets its very own video, as we watch Ava and Genevieve find their way around the actual sister location, avoiding the fun times, and now a fully realized Ennard design. This is the first full appearance of Ennard in an Ava G video. The end of Can You Survive and the speed paint doesn't count. Ava G's Funtime animatronic designs are still as iconic as ever. I especially have a strong personal love for her Funtime Freddy design. I think plenty of different people are going to have different opinions on what character playbook animations are really good and which ones fall short. Left Behind for me is an excellent example of the character playbook. There are some fantastic hooks in this animation. Check out Ballora getting scooped, or this cool transition sequence through all the fun times as they sing the second pre-chorus. Shout out to this triple angle bit here with Fredbear breaking the fourth wall. Pay attention to the eyes across the entire animation. They are inconsistently designed. I wonder if Ava G was experimenting with eye designs before the shift to the modern era, and using Left Behind as a training ground. Who is this character playing the original protagonist before Ava G gets transported into the game? Is it their friend? A random person? I don't know. Comparing it to the Night Guard from Can You Survive, they both look very similar except for their hair. In Left Behind, the first guard's hair is less saturated than the guard in Can You Survive. Could still be the same person, but the hair is a question point for me. During Springtrap's small cameo, he looks much more detailed than even his design in Can You Survive, although it may just be because he's much closer to the camera. Being the 7th FNaF fan song animation, you'd think Ava G would lose a little bit of her consistency, but she doesn't at all. Left Behind is a great character playbook animation, proving that Ava G still knew how to make great FNaF videos. The Funtime animatronic designs are still iconic, and Ava G also showcases a little bit more of her storytelling side with the outro scenes. For Left Behind, I'll say that it's a wonderful showcase of growing talent. This is Ava G's first step into animation meme territory, a scene that she would tap into a couple more times in the future. There's not really much to say about this one. It's an animation meme to a song I kinda had a phase with back then. The meme is fine, but there's nothing really to write home about. The character designs are good though, even this weird purple Grace. Does this mean Grace was the cat behind the slaughter? For Original High Meme by Ava G and Jennu, I'll say that it's trippy. And that was all 21 Ava G videos that make up the old era of her content. I had a lot of fun watching all of these videos again, picking apart their details and talking about them. Of course, we still have 2 more eras to get through, and I don't know when I'm gonna get to making those videos, so please don't subscribe and don't stay tuned. I watched most of these videos while in a voice call in my public Discord server. So if you want to discuss Ava G videos with me while I do research for the Modern Era review, go ahead and join my Discord server. There's a link below. I'd love to see you there. Alright, thank you for watching, and please don't subscribe.